President Trump has ordered around 1,000 U.S. troops to withdraw from northern Syria. The announcement is seen as another blow to U.S. allied Kurdish fighters as Turkey ramps up its military offensive against the group.
Meanwhile, hundreds of ISIS supporters have escaped captivity as the chaos escalates. There's growing fears that the terror group could regain strength. The U.S., which previously kept Turkey in check with its presence, is now weighing sanctions ahead. So for more on this, we want to bring in Dan Lamothe. He's a military reporter for the Washington Post. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. So to me, these moves, it just seems like when they talk about the law of unintended consequences, like this is an example of we really don't know what the consequences will be in the next month, in the next year, in the next 5 or 10 years. How will a U.S. troop withdrawal from the northeast area of Syria impact our national security?
So the initial concern from the U.S. point of view would be the reconstitution of the Islamic State, potentially. We're already seeing those prisoners and supporters, as you mentioned, being freed. In some cases, they're running along with a mix of other civilians in the same area. We're already seeing the Syrian army moving farther north toward the Turkish border, so there's concern about conflict there. And in the mix of all this, you've got U.S. forces that are trying to withdraw in some sort of orderly manner while having to deal with equipment that they don't want to leave behind and concerns about their own security.
So, Dan, I guess one of the questions that I asked our David Martin at the Pentagon, and I'll ask you since you cover the military for the Washington Post, is how are the members, our servicemen and women, reacting to this news? Specifically, those that are on the ground that have had to leave, how are they feeling going forward, knowing that, as one soldier put it to the New York Times, this is a stain on the American consciousness?
So it's very hard to reach the people that are in the middle of this right now, but I have discussed the issue with a number who have deployed to Syria within the last 2 years. It's not universal, but the great majority of those that I have discussed the issue with are very concerned not only about the fact that there has been a withdrawal called for, but the manner in which it was called for, this very quick-moving precipitous withdrawal where there's no way to tell how it's going to go, and you're sort of moving hour by hour.
So, now we're hearing that the Trump administration is weighing sanctions against Turkey. But I wonder, sanctions for what reason? What would they be punishing Turkey for doing? Because it certainly seemed like the president was aware of the fact that once U.S. troops began to pull out, Turkey would be entering the area and they would be attacking the Kurds. So what are they punishing Turkey for?
The most likely scenario is there's some pretty obvious likely war crimes that have been recorded on video over the last couple days. Those are things that the United States apparently received assurances would not happen. They have. A lot of people suspected they would, but that does at least give some reason for sanctions now.
And Dan, going forward, how will this move affect U.S. policy? How will the United States be able to operate in the theater if the folks that have come to rely on us know that at any moment in time, because of the whims of the president or because of a phone call from another leader, may leave them hanging in the wind?
I mean, the short answer is, especially in northeastern Syria, the United States simply will not be able to operate there. And we've already seen the likelihood, or at least the discussion, of Britain and France, which also had troops on the ground there, also looking or at least considering pulling out. More broadly, I mean, this is part of a theme that spans numerous countries and numerous security issues. It's hard to pin down the president on what he wants to do. Decisions are often made very quickly, and then his own administration is often forced to deal with those decisions and try and reframe them and make sense of them after the fact.
So
Dan, I just want to follow up real quickly on the point that I'm making about, or I'm asking Dan about, with regards to going forward. The president keeps saying that he campaigned on withdrawing the United States from these battles, and he keeps tweeting, "No more endless wars." But when wars end, World War II, the Korean War, military troops come home, but in the case of Germany, we kept bases in the region. We kept a military presence in the region for very specific reasons. When the armistice happened in Korea, there are still American servicemen and women in Korea because of actions undertaken in the 1950s. It is not uncommon to keep troops, to keep a small number, or in some cases a large number of troops, even as wars end. And I think that's what I just don't understand, because the president's surrogates are out there saying, yeah, this is what he has talked about doing. Rand Paul's out there talking about that, but it just sort of seems to defy military logic.
This is also a debate that definitely touches on Afghanistan. That discussion of whether or not there should be a full withdrawal, a partial withdrawal, and under what circumstances has been bubbling under the surface for months. It will erupt again at some point. And yes, the United States is trying to make sense of this when very quickly and sometimes seemingly quite impulsively, the decision is made to pull the rug and leave.
So, Dan, I just want to ask you quickly about the other bit of news coming out of the area, that the Kurds have now formed an alliance with the Syrian troops, Russian-backed Syrian troops. I don't think we've talked about Russia's role in the region. What are the possible implications of this new alliance?
So in the short term, you're going to have Russia with a greater foothold in Syria, in an area where United States troops are over the border in Iraq. You're going to have questions about how the NATO alliance looks and reacts when Turkey is a NATO member. Russia is pushing seemingly against that now. And when you look at this long term, there's a real question over how this vacuum with us leaving gets filled in.
Indeed. All right, Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you.